I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Haim Shapiro. He is the Executive Director of Career Services at Touro University, or Touro College, I'm sorry, a freelance writer, public speaker, and social media consultant specializing in LinkedIn. This is now our fifth year in a row. We've had Mr. Shapiro on campus or online with us virtually doing the LinkedIn workshop. He does an excellent job, and I think you'll get a lot out of tonight's presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Shapiro. Let him take it from here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being back. I know you guys are suffering there with some flooding, and definitely have all our thoughts and our prayers from people across the country in terms of making sure that everything is in good order. I'm gonna get some snow tonight, and hopefully things will start to improve. My name is Chaim Shapiro, and I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Career Services. Actually, we just got promoted to a university about a year ago, so it actually is Touro University now. And I'm a LinkedIn expert. I've been giving LinkedIn presentations across the country for about 10, 11 years at this point. And one of the things that I like to do is I give this presentation as a live demo, as opposed to a lot of my colleagues who actually do it with slides. And the reason I do that is because I want you to be able to ask questions and stop me.
Well,
If you
not
guys don't
really.
mind, if you can mute your mics, unless you're actually going to be asking a question, if you don't mind, I'm sorry about that. But I like to do a live demo because I want you to be able to ask me questions and say, hey, can you show me how you did that? Again, how do you do this specific thing or that specific thing? So to me, a great session is one where there's a lot of questions either in the chat or asked directly onto the platform. And we're going to go through the LinkedIn basically from top to bottom. The first thing is we're going to go through your LinkedIn profile to show you how to maximize your LinkedIn profile so that when people are looking for you and they find you on LinkedIn, you're actually portraying your message the way that you want to. If we have time after that, we're going to get into looking for jobs on LinkedIn. And if we have time after that, we're getting into finding, engaging other people on LinkedIn and how to post on LinkedIn in a way that gets you noticed so people could actually see your expertise. So we're going to get started with that. Again, I really like people to be asking questions at any point. If you want to jump in, I pause every 5-6 minutes for questions anyway, but don't need to wait for that. If you have a question, just pop it into the chat or feel free to ask it. Okay, so the first thing to do is to get into the edit mode of your profile. The easiest way to do that is by clicking the little picture of yourself over here. I try to normalize people going to this little me button over here and clicking view profile. The reason for that is a bunch of other things that you can do over here. So I want to get people familiar with that. And I click view profile. This takes me into the password protected edit mode of my profile. I had a client once who was very worried because we actually did this and he was afraid that somebody outside of his account would be able to actually access this. Obviously, this is completely password protected. Only the people when you're logged in can access this. But this is specifically how you are able to access your LinkedIn account and start making those changes. Now, I'm going to put you guys on the hot plate here for a second, the hot seat. If I were to ask you what the most important parts of your LinkedIn profile are, what would you guys say the most important parts of the LinkedIn profile are? Jump in.
Oh, Ryan, there you go. The headline?
The headline, exactly right. The headline is this part right over here.
Some guy will never
that is incredibly. Russ, can you see if you can mute the one person that's, I'm sorry. There's one person speaking. Okay, what else would you say? I actually called a LinkedIn triumvirate. So there's three important parts. Headline is absolutely one of them. Any other thoughts on those? Just to tell you, the other two are your profile photo and your name. So the reason these are the most important parts of the LinkedIn profile is because wherever you show up on LinkedIn, if people are doing searches for you or people get emails from you on LinkedIn, these three things show up with you. So you need to make sure that you maximize them so that when people see it, they know who you are and what you're able to bring to the actual table. So we're going to go through how to maximize each one of these parts of the LinkedIn triumvirate: your photo, your name, and your LinkedIn headline. First, for the photo, if you go over here, you click on the photo. If you don't have a photo there might be a camera there. If you click the edit button, you have the ability to go in there and just zoom in. You could actually add filters, do a whole bunch of different things to get this picture exactly the way that you like it. I think a good headshot photo tends to be the best way in terms of being able to do that. But there are other filters here that let you illuminate and do other things that actually make sure that you are presenting yourself in the best possible way. I also think the most common question I get from people is, well, what should I be wearing in this LinkedIn photo? And I think it actually depends on a couple of things. First of all, where are you going to be applying for a job? Because if you're applying for a job at an investment bank, you want to be dressed probably like I'm dressed, formal clothing, which they would be expecting you to wear. If you're looking to work at, let's say, Meta or Alphabet, they might see that formal clothing as somebody who doesn't fit with their team. So what I usually advise folks to do is if you are going to a networking event, and let's assume at this networking event, the senior leadership of the kind of company you want to work on would be there, what would you be wearing to that networking event? And that's what you should be wearing in your photo because that'll help you fit with the team specifically. If you're not sure, being a little more formal is usually better than being a little less formal. Okay, usually you want to have a white background. I don't here because I think the light got me just the way that I wanted to, but you don't actually need to pay for a professional photo. You can simply get a white background with an iPhone, Samsung against the white background and take that headshot photo. I think smiling is very important because when you smile, I think people relate to you better. The other thing you can actually do here on your computer, if you go to add photo, besides uploading it, if you have it accessed, if you have it enabled on your actual computer, you can use the camera on your computer to take that picture for you with that background. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have that professional photo. Do not use photos of other things, no logos. You don't want a disembodied arm from a fishing trip you went on with a buddy who was hanging his arm over you or something like that. It should be a photo just of you. Okay, now to keep moving down through the LinkedIn triumvirate, the next thing is your name. And that sounds simple, but it's a little more complicated. So this is where you go to the edit mode here. This little pencil, not intuitive. I go over here, it's going to take me into the edit mode. And you see here, I have my name, Chaim Shapiro. So why isn't this simple? Because some people want to include their degree. Chaim Shapiro, my degree is a master's in education. And they'll put comma, MED, after their name. Now, I recommend against that generally because LinkedIn could give you a feature that allows you to do that. And this is just a name for that feature. But I do think one credential is okay after your name. If you put more than that, it can be very difficult for people who are trying to tag you when you're an advanced user to tag you. So I would not go with multiple credentials. But if you really want to include one, I would include the most important one there. The other change they made about 2-3 years ago, this used to be called former or maiden name. Now it's actually called additional name, which is much better in my opinion. Why? Well, the reason is that I work with a lot of students at Turo who are Orthodox Jewish students who have names like, well, Chaim, and they're actually known in the community and other people by another name, let's say Howard. And because this is additional name, not former name, if I click save, and this is not my actual name, look what it does there. It has Chaim Howard Shapiro in there. So if somebody has that name, Chaim that they use in the community and Howard they use professionally, people who look at their account can actually see both and actually know that it's them. I will tell you one of the frustrations in career services looking for former students who have changed their name after marriage for first destination, you could actually put that former name in there as well. And that'll make sure that people are actually able to find you and associate you with that former name that you had right over there. Okay. Keep moving down the profile. The next thing, and I think as somebody said before, this is the most important real estate in all of social media. This is your LinkedIn headline. Your LinkedIn headline is your opportunity. If somebody sees nothing else besides your photo and your name, what is it about you that makes them interested in seeing your profile? Again, this is a pitch that you want to give to somebody. What are you going to be able to do for them? So when I have, for example, computer science students, I have, say, emerging computer science professional with experience in C#, SQL, and dedicated to helping the next generation of young women through Girls Who Code. I think that's a powerful statement because it says a lot of different things about them. But this will be very different depending on what you're looking for and what your actual skills are. Now you'll see here, LinkedIn will try to charge you to write this with AI, and AI does a pretty good job of it, but you do not need to pay for premium to do that. Simply go over to ChatGPT or any of your favorite AI system. See here, create a LinkedIn headline for an accounting major with expertise, and this is what it gave me. Now, actually, you can go in here and change things and change it to make it a little bit better, make it a little more personalized to you, but I think this is a good start. You do not need to pay anyone or any kind of AI or any kind of LinkedIn in order to get that kind of information. I do think separating multiple ideas with a line, you see on mine, I don't use a line, I use a little dash, is a good idea because people find it very difficult to read big blocks of text on social media. So I think separating separate ideas is a good idea. So that's the LinkedIn triumvirate, and I've been speaking for about 10 minutes. I want to see if anybody has any questions about the top 3 things that we've spoken about on the LinkedIn profile so far.
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
For the professional profile, what type of background you mentioned we should have in the profile photo?
Say what should you what
I asked that for a professional, what type of background there should be in the profile
background.
photo,
So I think usually a white background makes sense.
right?
Okay. I don't have a white background here because I think the light got me just the right way. But usually a white background, it makes sense. I don't think you need anything fancy there. Just a normal white background that you use and make sure that you're smiling. Great question. Thank you for that question. Other questions? Okay, so we're going to keep moving our way through this top
Sorry,
part of.
Chaim.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, so do you need to put that comma there before you put your post nominal? Or
So I think it makes sense to put that. You talk about if you're putting your degree after your name or your credential. I think it does make sense to put a comma there because
Okay.
otherwise it's not going to come up right. But again, you have to be aware there are people who might find it difficult to actually tag you a little bit later. But I think one is okay. I would definitely not go more than one on that because then it
Okay.
gets very, very confusing. I
Thank
think we
you.
had a question in the chat. Russell, can you read that? I can't seem to access it. But I will keep moving as well here.
It says,
Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
upload a video?
Yes, you can actually. Well, I can't upload a video here. They actually had a video that you could upload there in the past. I took that down about 6 months ago. I'll show you where you can actually upload videos later. Great question. Okay, but just to keep moving through this top part of the profile, and I go back into this little pencil right over here, and I'll pause for questions again in a few moments. Keep moving the way down here. You see here on the mobile app, you can actually record your name. So if you have a name like Chaim that most people cannot pronounce, you can simply actually record yourself saying it. You should be able to hear that when I click this little button here. And
Chaim.
there we go. People can actually hear pronunciation of my name so that if they do reach out to me, they know how to pronounce that. You can only record that on the mobile app. So if you want to do that, you can do that as well. You also have the ability to add pronouns if you like. And the pronouns are she, her, he, him, they, them, or you could add custom pronouns that best meet the gender identity. I think some people want to do this, some people don't, and I think either way is fine. I just think that people should respect other people's opinions when it comes to what they're doing with that specific thing. Okay. To keep moving down the profile here. So next one here is industry. Now, industry options, LinkedIn has increased the number of industry options, but they're still limited in terms of the total number. You want to get this as close as you can to your profession. Higher education is not career services, which is what I do, but it's as close as I can get to it. So you want to start filling in something and make sure after it gives you these suggestions to actually sync it with that by clicking on it. That way you will show up in the searches that people are doing for that particular profession or industry. So you want to get as close as you can, click that sync button and make sure that's on there, and that will give you the opportunity for people to actually find you in those searches. LinkedIn promises that they're going to be including more options here, but we'll see it when I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, but they have added more options over the course of the last several years. Another thing here is location. So you see here, I actually have, and this is interesting, I have chosen the New York City metropolitan area as my location, even though I live in a little city called West Hempstead, New York. Anyone want to guess why I chose New York instead of West Hempstead? How many of you exactly, wider reach, exactly. How many of you have heard of West Hempstead, New York? I'm guessing probably none or very, very few, but everyone pretty much has heard of the New York City metropolitan area, which is why I chose that as the one that's closer to me because people are more familiar with that instead of going, where in the world is West Hempstead? Okay. Last thing here I want to show you is actually you have the ability to add a link to a website here at the top of your profile. This is my own personal website. The important thing here is you actually write copy here that includes some information about where you're sending folks. So you see here, I have people book LinkedIn workshops, which is what I'm trying to sell on my website. But this, if you have your GitHub here, I don't have the GitHub link. I say, see my coding projects or access my coding projects or something like that. Just be aware that you only have 30 fonts here in terms of what you put on here. But I think it's very important to have that, especially if you have a professional website. If you don't have your first name, last name at .com or something similar to it, I would advise that you get that if you can, and try to put your resume or other things up on there as well. It's a great way to help promote yourself. Okay. Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far?
It looks like there's one in the chat from Eric. What did you use as the separators in the title, those side arrows?
So I just actually cut and paste this off of somebody else's profile. So if you actually go in here, just go click over it, click the copy button, and you should be able to pop that right into yours. So I happen to like the way that looks. Most people use the line, so I want to differentiate myself when someone sees it so it stands out in a positive way. So that's why I chose to use those as opposed to the standard line. So I think it makes it get noticed a little bit better than those other places, or the other way of doing it. Thank you so much for that question. Okay, to keep moving here, next thing I want to show you is this background image. Now, the background image will usually be blank unless you put something there. LinkedIn has a few generic options that you could add, but the best thing you can do is actually have a image uploaded on here that actually promotes your brand. So as a person who claims he can give excellent LinkedIn workshops and webinars, I don't just say that. Here's a picture of me giving a LinkedIn webinar or workshop, actually. Folks here staring at the screen sells me as somebody who actually does what it is that he claims that he does. Now, the way you change this, you click this little pencil over here, and you have the ability, like anything else, to upload a photo or adjust it and do whatever you need to do, zoom, straighten. But one of the common questions I get is, how do I create this so that it actually does promote my brand if I don't have any action photos? And one of the free ways to do that is through a website called Canva. Canva usually has free trials. If not, it's relatively inexpensive usually for set up an account for a short period of time. But look here, this one has LinkedIn background for business student. And if I have the premium account here, I could actually go in here and say, you know what? I like Jacqueline's. And I can actually click on that, change the information. So it has my name and it says LinkedIn expert and put my contact information on it. And then when I'm done with that, download it and upload it right into here. Just be aware this is a wider photo and that your profile photo is going to show up here in the left corner no matter what you do. So you don't want to hide anything really, really good behind that. So I definitely recommend people personalize that. I had some computer students that show network computers. I've had accounting students that show the old books that people used to use, and transitioning that to QuickBooks. So there's a lot of really creative things you can do here. The idea is to help promote your brand and let people see what it is that you do. Okay, next thing I want to talk about here is your URL. So you see here, my LinkedIn URL is my first name, last name. Usually it does not default to that. It will be linkedin.com/in, a bunch of letters of your first name, maybe a dash, and a bunch of stuff after your name. If you click this pencil is where you're actually able to change that. This pencil right over here gives you the ability to change this to a unique URL. The best one you can get is linkedin.com/in, first name, last name, or linkedin.com/in, first name dash last name. I had no trouble getting Chaim Shapiro. It's not the most common name. For folks who have trouble getting that name, what you can actually do is try an underscore, try a dash after, but I actually prefer, this is the place to put your credential. So if I couldn't get Chaim Shapiro here, I would have gone to Chaim Shapiro MED, or it could be Chaim Shapiro CPA, or whatever it is, and click save. There can only be one unique URL per address. And once you get this, and once you finish setting up your profile, it's a great thing to put in the signature line of your emails, because that way people who see your emails have the ability to click on your LinkedIn profile if they want to. One other thing I want to point out here, I don't normally talk about this, but this is actually what people see if they Google you and they're not actually logged into LinkedIn. The reason this is important, I was working with a student the other day who's actually very talented, done a lot of projects in terms of computer science, but she's working as a barista at a particular coffee shop as her college job. And when people saw that, it said barista at coffee shop. And that's not what she was trying to sell. And you can actually go in there and change that. What I did with her is over here, this changes this in real time. So I want to get rid of this about summary section. I can click that out over here. It disappears and then people will not see that. What I did for her is get rid of her current experience, because that was what was showing the fact that she was a barista, and I had to focus on her websites, her headline, and some of her other things there as well to make sure she's actually selling herself appropriately. Okay, so that's how you set your URL, and that's how you make sure that people viewing you outside of LinkedIn are actually able to see what you want them to see. When you go back to the main LinkedIn page, always make sure to refresh the page. Otherwise, some of the stuff you'll do might get lost because LinkedIn sees it as if you were on two separate pages. Any questions about what we've spoken about with the contact information? Sorry, with the top part of the profile, the background image, the URL, or how you look on Google outside of LinkedIn?
Yes, so I'm concerned about the URL, because if I had the URL originally a certain way, would it affect how it comes up on Google if I add the
It's a great
degree?
question. So yeah, so notice you've had this URL for a while. So usually the old URL usually works for a while. and I think it's worth changing it. And it's like, look, I was on Chaim Shapiro at AOL for decades. And then Gmail just became so much better that I had to move over to Gmail, and I got Chaim Shapiro at Gmail. Sometimes you just have to do that, but generally it's not going to destroy much. I mean, I think it's better to do it sooner rather than later. Yeah, but there is a concern that people will look for the old URL. If they actually tap it, they might not find it. But if people are Googling your name or actually putting your name into the search bar, it shouldn't make a difference. And that just allows you to be more professional in terms of how you're presenting yourself on your email and other places. Great question. Thank you. Other questions? So I want to get into actually your email here. Next thing here is your contact information on LinkedIn. This is not at all intuitive. You have to hover over contact info, click on this. Then you can click on this little pencil, which takes you into the ability to start editing your contact information. Now you see here, we did this before, so we don't need this now. One of the biggest frustrations I see that people have on LinkedIn is when somebody they're connected to actually has an old email address that no longer works. So one of the things you want to make sure to do is make sure you have your current email addresses up on there. The way you do that, see here, this little box with an out. If I click on this, it's going to take me into my settings. It might ask you for your password before you do this, but it gives you the opportunity to set your primary email, secondary, and even tertiary email here as well. So because Chaim Shapiro AOL still works and people still look for me by that email, I still have it up here, but I made Gmail my primary because that's the main one that I use. Plus I have my work email here as well so people can find me. You can switch any of these to primary by clicking make primary or add an email address over here. Just be aware that when you add an email address, it's going to make you go into your email to verify that to make sure that you actually have access to that email before it puts it up. But make sure you have your current email address on there. I have a lot of times I wanted to send somebody a message off of LinkedIn and their email address is from 2 or 3 jobs ago and it doesn't work and it's a very frustrating thing. So that's how you're actually able to change that. Okay. See here, I also have my phone number. Common question I get, well, aren't you afraid of getting spam? And I always tell them, well, I get spam no matter what I do. I'd rather get more spam rather than miss a very, very important call. And I screen all my calls anyway, but that's a personal preference issue. I have my birth date, but not my birth year. The reason for that is people start engaging with me around my birthday. It's a great way to engage with folks and start building your network. I don't have the birth year because that's actually a security question a lot of folks use on a lot of their accounts and those things. So I advise against putting your birth year anywhere on social media. And you could add instant messaging and other things over here. And the website is what we have from the point before. So I don't actually have my address on here, I should point out, because I don't want people showing up at my house. So I actually don't want people seeing that so directly on social media, even though they can access it if they really want to. And they want to find it, but I don't want to make it too easy for them. Okay. Any questions about Russ? Can you put someone on mute there? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. All right. Any questions about anything we talked about with the contact information or anything in the top part of the profile?
I'm trying.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving down the profile here, and next thing here is the open to work badge. Now, if you don't currently have these, you click open to, and that'll allow you to add open to work or open to volunteer. So let me show you this. If I click on this little pencil, because I have this here already, you see I put in the job titles I'm interested in, on-site, hybrid, remote. I'd be interested in all those, New York City metropolitan area. And you see here, I put down I'm flexible. I'm casually looking. I've been at Turo for 17 and a half years. I'm very happy here. But if somebody offered me $1 million to go somewhere else, I would probably consider that, which is why I have that on. Now, the big difference is down over here. I have this set to recruiters only, meaning only people who are using LinkedIn's recruiter platform can actually see that I'm open to a job. If you want all LinkedIn members to be able to see that, you would click on this, click the save button, and look what this does. It adds that around my profile photo. Now, I would say about 65% of LinkedIn experts would claim this is a good idea if you're looking for a job, because it lets more people know that you're looking for a job. I think I'm in the minority when it comes to this, the 35% that actually think it's not a good idea to have that on your profile. People make very quick assessments and judgments on social media, and I don't want the first thing they see about me is the fact that I'm open to a job. I can put that at the end of my headline potentially, but I don't want that to be the very, very first thing that they see. But that's a personal preference issue. And again, I am in the minority when it comes to the perspective of LinkedIn experts on that. And I personally believe it's better not to have it, but most people would say just the opposite. The way I get rid of this is to go turn it back to recruiters only. LinkedIn claims that recruiters from your company can actually see this, but just be aware of anything you post on social media potentially is out there. So it is certainly possible that somebody from your company is looking and they use a recruiter platform from a different account and you can see that you're actually looking, even though they're part of your company. Okay. So look at that. I changed that back. I got rid of that profile badge over there. And that way people cannot see that I'm looking for a job directly unless they're on the recruiter platform. LinkedIn added this about 6 months ago. Open to volunteer. Love this because just like you have community service on your resume, this is an opportunity to fill out that you're available for volunteer opportunities. So you see causes, areas of interest. You click the ones that you're interested in, and I can give LinkedIn training for those folks and on site in different places and location. Then click the save button, and that's going to have it up there. Now, I think this is important for a couple of reasons. First of all, you could find actual volunteer opportunities and really, really help people, which is the most important thing of all. But in addition to that, I think recruiters really like to see that somebody's involved in their community and willing to volunteer and do those extra things. So I think in addition to helping people, it helps you because people see you as a person who's willing to give back to the community and do the things that need to be done to help the community. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So I'm going to move on to the about section. LinkedIn used to call this a summary, and now it's about, but they're actually returning it to summary soon. A couple of things to point out here. First is that I once was at a LinkedIn session and I said that nobody likes Seymour. And I had somebody in the audience named Seymour who got very upset at me, but I wasn't saying nobody likes the name Seymour. I was saying that people are not going to click a Seymour button. You have to be very, very interested at somebody's profile to click the Seymour button to get more from their profile. The point is that I'm trying to make is the stuff here is the most important stuff. The stuff before the Seymour button is the stuff you really want to highlight, your most important stuff. This is going to date me, but back in the day, the New York Times used to have above the fold that people used to see in the news box, and literally everybody saw the headlines. If you flipped over, you lost about 90% of the audience, which is probably true in this case as well. But you can still add more information here. This gives you the opportunity for more of a narrative in your headline. And it is highly searchable. So I do recommend that you include some robust information and comprehensive information here as well. And again, make sure the most important stuff is above the fold there, above the see more button so that people can actually see it. One of the things LinkedIn added about a year and a half ago is the ability to list your top 5 skills here. Now, I think this is very, very important because your skills are listed much further down in your profile. And I think this lets people see it much higher up. So even if they aren't going all the way down, they get to see your top skills here. You can drag and drop and reorder these to get them the way that you want. My philosophy generally is you want to make sure that your number one most important skill is first, second, third, because you can't assume that people are going to constantly move and read from left to right. So make sure your most important stuff there is first, second, third, and you can put up to 5. And we'll talk more about skills in a little bit. Okay. Just moving down to the featured section, then I'll pause for questions. I think this is the place somebody asked about adding videos. So as a person who claims to give an excellent LinkedIn webinar, this is actually my webinar for you guys last year right over here. They click on this, they get the actual YouTube of me giving it. So I don't need to say that I can do a great LinkedIn webinar. They can actually see a video of it. This is also a presentation that I gave at a conference last year. If you click the plus button, it gives you the opportunity to add an article, link, add your media. That's where you put the YouTubes or the actual pictures, rather. The YouTube video will go through the link. You also see here that I have a copy of my resume up here, which I think is a great little hack. If you upload this as a document, it actually had, and I need to change this to 2025, but you see here it has my resume on there. So if somebody's actually looking at, oh, Chaim Shapiro is an interesting guy, but I have a friend who's not a LinkedIn person. How do I get his resume? Well, they can download my resume right off of this directly onto their desktop and then send it on to that particular person. Again, the same philosophy here. You can include multiple things after, but chances are people aren't scrolling all the way over here. If you want to reorder and make sure your top stuff is first, second, third, the reorder button is right over here. And because I'm not looking for a job, and I just use this as an example, I'm going to move my resume out of here back towards the bottom and include something that's more important for me over there on that part under the featured section. So I want to pause here for questions. We're about halfway through the session and see if anyone has any questions about anything we've spoken about so far.
For the resume that you added under the
Mhm.
feature section, how is that going to be different from the one that's always tailored to a role that
It's a great question. So the
Okay.
question basically is you want to tailor specific resumes for a role, and you're not going to be able to tailor this because it's going to be generic. So I think there's two things that I do. If you have like Handshake or one of those job boards, I usually tell students they want to have their generic resume as their main resume and secondary, tertiary resumes they're sending for particular jobs. I think the same thing is true with LinkedIn. Have your most generic form of your resume that covers the most areas available on there and then tailor it specifically for jobs. But again, you don't have to do it if you don't feel comfortable and there's multiple things you do, but I think it makes sense to have that up there if you want people to be able to access it. But yet you are 100% correct that it does need to be a more generic version instead of being targeted for a particular employer, which is what you want to do every time you send a resume to a particular employer. So to me, it's no different than Handshake or Simplicity or one of those places where you put your generic resume as the one that everybody has access to and the more specific one going forward. Great question. Other questions? Okay, so we're going to keep moving down the profile here. So you just see some activity here. The most important thing I want to show you here is your work experience. And you'll see here that I've been at Turo for 17 and a half years. A couple important things to highlight over here. First of all, if I click this little pencil, this gives me the ability to edit. And I need to go in again to my Turo job right over here. First thing I want you to do is toggle this to off. This is actually going to tell people if you make changes to your profile. The problem is that a lot of times what it actually does, if you make a small change, it announces to everybody that you got a new job. And I've been at Turo for 17 and a half years. And I don't want that going out because I made a small little tweak to that. So I keep this on off. Now, going down here, you see I have the title of my position. Most important part here is look how I sync this to Turo University's page. If I get rid of this Y here, look what happens. That logo disappears. When I sync it to this, the logo shows up, number one. And number two, people are searching for people who are employees at Turo will actually be able to see it at that point as well. Okay, to keep moving down here in terms of the profile, you can actually add things here in terms of content. LinkedIn should have a bullet feature. They don't for reasons I do not understand for the life of me. So this is not formatted correctly, as you can see, but I just cut paste this right off of my generic form resume and put it right in here because people can't read big blocks of text on social media. So I want to separate those things. LinkedIn really should have a feature that allows you to do that. In addition, when we talk about skills, I'm going to point out here that you also can include a number of skills under your particular positions. The reason this is important to include that, I'll show you how to do this in a few minutes, is because when people are looking for person with a particular skill, they know how long you've been in your particular job. So if you say, for example, that I have this skill at Turo University when I was executive director, they might make or should make the assumption that I've had that skill for 1 year and 8 months. And if had it here all the way through my Turo career, that I've had it for 17 and a half years. So if they're looking for somebody with 15 years plus experience, having that skill in that work, or 5 years in that work experience, lets recruiters see, oh, this person has had this skill for that period of time. Yeah, we will talk a little bit more about what you need to do in order to add those skills to your particular jobs. It's easier to do it further down as opposed to doing it for each job. And you'll see here, I also have here that you could see the continuation of my time here at Turo, executive director. And if you scroll down here on the left, you see this little line going down. Director of Office for Student Success, and it keeps going down for the years that I've been here. The trick for this is you need to make sure that the dates match up. So you see here, I ended this position in July 2023, and you'll see that I started this new one July 2023. It could be 1 month off. So if this was August 2023, that would also work. If you separate it by more than 1 month, usually it'll separate it into 2 positions, but you don't want that because you want to show them the continuity that shows that long time period you've been working at your company and taking on more responsibilities and moving up in terms of what you're doing. Okay, see here, if I'm scrolling down, here's a place that I work that actually doesn't have a logo, so I wasn't able to sync with them. But look at the difference between Pace and this one here and that. It just looks a lot better when you have that logo, so it makes sense to be able to associate yourself with that. Another question I often get is, how far back should I go in terms of my job and work experience? So you see here, I have a job that I actually started when George H.W. Bush was president, and I was hauling furniture and doing all sorts of things as my college job. I keep that there because I want to show people that I've been working for a long time and taking on more responsibilities, progressing in my career. The only time where I take jobs down is if you're worried about, and you have to worry about it at my age, by the way. If you're worried about ageism, which is illegal, they're not allowed to actually discriminate against folks because of their age, but let's be honest, they do. And if you're worried about that and you're looking for a job, you might want to take some of the older stuff off to make sure that they aren't going to be discriminating against you because, oh, he's been working since, 6 presidents ago. We don't want to, he's probably not going to be somebody who's going to be able to do the work that we're able to do. Okay. Next thing here I want to show you, and I'll pause for questions, is your education. Very similar thing here. Just go in here. Usually you will go to put down University of the Cumberlands and make sure to sync it here again with that particular university, and that way you will show up in the alumni searches. Notified network is also off here. Just to show you here, you actually can include some other things that you've done, skills, and I was speaker of the Student Senate back in the day. You can include that there as well. Usually you would include your most recent educational experience first, but you can change that if you want. For any NCAA basketball fans, about 7 years ago, my Loyola Ramblers made it to the Final Four. And I just flipped these because people were actually seeing Loyola University on my profile and engaging with me, and nobody was thinking of UC Riverside. So that's why I did that then. But as soon as the tournament was pretty much over and people forgot about it, I went back in there and changed it back because the most recent one is generally the one that you want to have first. Yes, I think there's a question in the chat, Russell.
Yes, it says Jen wants to know, what about identity theft or security issues?
So that's a great question. I think you have to worry about anything you put on social media or anywhere that there's always the possibility that people are going to try to steal your information. Again, I had my cell phone up there, but not my address for that particular reason. There are some security protocols on LinkedIn. One of the things I advise people to be very careful with is people who are connected to you have access to more of your profile. So I try to vet the people who are actually sending me connection requests to make sure they're legitimate, because there are accounts on there that are trying to steal your information and grab your email address or grab your phone number and utilize that for nefarious purposes. So there's always a danger of that on social media. But on the other hand, as I point out, if people Google my name, they'll find all that information in a couple of steps anyway. So this just, makes it a little bit easier for them, but always beware what you put up there. If you're not comfortable with particular information, I would not put it up. And if you're afraid people are going to get it, make it harder for people to access that. But people can get anything nowadays that they want anywhere, but just, you don't need to make it easy for them. Great
Looks
question.
like we have a raised hand too.
Yes, please.
DK, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
Okay. My question is more related to, you mentioned about putting, starting your experience on the LinkedIn profile, and I have been on LinkedIn for a long time. I'm coming back after a career break for family
nice.
reasons, and I think my concern, you rightly mentioned about the age and the discrimination which does happen.
Yeah,
and
it
I've been
does.
thinking to restart my job search as an entry level because I took a break for like around 6 years or so, but I have an experience of around 15 years. So now I'm confused because, of course, with all that experience, it's so obvious on the LinkedIn how much experience
Right.
I have. I'm finding it difficult to get into any
Yeah, you
position.
might need to get rid of some of the older jobs on there and just have the more recent ones if you're looking for entry level. It's unfortunate that people do it. It is illegal and it's wrong, but people do it. So if you're looking for entry level, you might want to just put your most recent job and your education. Just be aware that one of the things they also look for, because people are aware that people get rid of the old stuff, and they find your education from a year. Oh, wait a minute, he graduated in 1995. Obviously,
Yeah.
even if he has a job there, so there are other places they can find it. Just want to make sure that if you're trying to disguise that, to not give it away somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I think it's true on resumes, by the way.
I do notice that in education, people do not put in years when it's an older education. But do you think it's okay if I want to take off almost all of my experience except from the last 2 years? Is it okay?
I think you need to make a value judgment. If people are going to be discriminating against you because of that, as unfortunate as that is, I think you need to make the judgment of what's best for you in terms of your search. And if that's not working for you currently, I would shake it up and see what happens if you do that.
Okay.
But just
Thank
be
you.
aware that a consultant might see it in it with an older education thing. Great question. Any other questions? move on to skills here because skills are very, very important. So a few things to show you over here. First of all, you see here, I have a list of 56 skills. LinkedIn changed this recently. You can actually add up to 100 skills now. It used to be 50. And this is a great way for people to actually see what skills you have. It's highly searchable. And you see these top two are the ones that show up over here. You could actually change the order because you want to make sure the ones that show up on the screen without clicking show all are the most important ones. So we click on the little pencil. And if I go into here, and this is where the reorder button is, I can simply go in here and instead of having leadership number 2, move that down, have career counseling number 2. That'll change it around that so that career counseling is number 2 there. And that way people can actually see that. Now, a couple important things to point out here. First of all, you could add skills to this, and it gives you some actual recommendations for what you could actually add, and you could add those. A lot of people ask AI what they should add. If you go to AI and say, for example, that you are looking for the top 50 skills for a computer science student looking for a job at Meta, it gives you a very nice list. Make sure you have these skills, but it's a great way of finding the skills that are actually relevant that you might want to be including. Now, one hack that I want to show you here that you might not see anywhere else is you could actually go into a particular company. So if you see here, if you go into Deloitte, which is a major accounting firm, if I click on their profile, and I click the people button. We're going to follow the bouncing ball here a little bit. If I click this button twice, it actually shows me what people at Deloitte are actually skilled at. And if I have those skills, those are probably good skills to be including on my LinkedIn profile because people who are currently working at that company have it. Now, if you're looking for a big four, you go to EY, you go to KPMG and start triangulating around the skills that are most important. But you can do even more than that. Let's say you want an information technology job, which is a smaller part of Deloitte. I can click on that and it's going to resort and change these skills based on what people in information technology who are actually at Deloitte actually have. And you see here, SQL shows up, Python shows up, and other things. So they can actually change that. One other quick thing you can do here actually is you could actually where they studied, and we're going to try Cumberland's here. University of the Cumberlands. And you see here, we got a bunch of folks here. You can actually see what they're skilled at. So people from your university, what skills they have there that actually got done those jobs. Great thing here you could also do, if you scroll down here, it'll actually show you those folks. So these could be great people to click on their profile and start engaging them. Maybe send them a connection request because that might be people who will be able to help you eventually in terms of being able to find those jobs. So that's one of the ways you can see what skills. So I'd say use the 100 skills, make sure your best skills are the ones that are on top, make sure the skills are tailored specifically for what kind of job that you're looking for. And the other thing I want to show you here is to make sure to include the skills you have for each of the jobs where they were relevant. And that's what I was talking about before, where they actually see the skills and how long you've had those skills. If I go into any one of these skills, let's choose LinkedIn as the example. It gives me the ability to go in here and choose and click where I've utilized those skills. So I can go down here and click all these at once. If you go through job by job, you need to add the skills individually job by job. Much easier to add your skills than go through and click where you had those particular skills and where you utilize them. Again, I think this is very, very important because people do make a judgments or assumptions about how long you've had a skill based on where you've worked and how long you've been in that place, then you have that skill there. So it's important to associate those skills specifically with the particular job and the place where you use them so people can see that you've had that LinkedIn skill for 5-6 years or whatever it is they might be looking for. Last part I want to show you about the profile here is recommendations. I just got a nice recommendation today. This is an opportunity for people to give a narrative and a testimonial about your work. I think it's really good to have at least 3 to 5 recommendations up here. It's not from your roommate. It's not from somebody that you're in class with. It's to be professors or deans, chairs of departments, people you've worked for. The way you request that is by clicking the little plus button, ask for a recommendation. You need to be directly connected. You need your first reconnection of yours. So if I start putting in, see that I did this yesterday. It didn't come up actually, but let's just choose one person here randomly. Click the continue button and I can show the position and say I'm doing my social media consulting and the person was a client of mine. This is the important part. When I ask them to write a recommendation, I don't just simply say write a recommendation. I would say to Russell Carr, Dr. Carr, Dear Dr. Carr, thank you so much for having me give my presentation for Cumberland's. Would you mind writing a recommendation for how my session was? And if he wants to, then he has the ability to actually go in there and actually include that and put it in my profile. Actually, this was what was submitted today. I had to approve it before Amy was actually able to put it on my profile. So nobody can put anything on your profile without your approval. They need to be approved by you. If, for example, you were saying, well, you know what, Amy, I'd like you to change a couple of things. What you could actually do then is click the little pencil right over here and specifically, could you change? Now, I don't need to. Amy wrote it great. I was very happy with it. But if Amy does decide to make those changes, she can make those changes. I need to approve those changes before they would actually go up on my profile. Okay, I think we have a couple questions there, Russell.
Let's see. AJ wants to know what's the best way to present. No, let's see. I've got a little blocking there. Hang on. 13 months of consecutive experience with different companies, and how would a recruiter perceive such a profile?
This is a great question, and it's one that I don't get often. The problem is, just that you're working in multiple places, and you see here, I have my social media consultant job up here as well. LinkedIn does not do showing multiple areas of expertise or work very, very well. So you usually it's going to have the primary one is the one you're currently working at. You see here, I have my university affiliation here as opposed to my social media business because that's very, very part-time. I wish LinkedIn did better with this. But you got to be careful because if you have experience with multiple places at the same time or you're moving around a lot, they might be concerned that you're a job hopper. And people are very worried that job hoppers might not stay with them. So you need to be very careful in terms of what you put up on LinkedIn. You might want to just include some of the jobs, but you need to take it on a case-by-case basis. Does that answer the question? Okay. And there was another question there, I think, or was that the one about the
Yeah, that was the one
identity
about
theft?
security
Yeah, great.
issues.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
that's basically what we have here about the profile. Just so you know, you can always add profile sections. If you don't see anything that I have up here, education, positions, services, skills, you can add all those things under recommended. License and certifications could be very important for people that require those things. Projects, courses, recommendations, and under additional here, you'll see that we have patents and test scores. This now, I actually had a client once with, it was actually one of my sessions that actually had a patent, which was kind of cool. But honors and awards would be, major things. Not that you won, second place in a dance contest, at the fraternity, but honors and awards would be professional things, and test scores wouldn't be that you got a 95 on your computer science midterm. Would be the scores you got on your CPA exam and things like that. But you can add those dependent on what's important for your profile. You will see that on mine, I do have license and certifications and projects and other things that help sell me. What I wish LinkedIn did is allow you to order this any way that you want, but they don't. They sort of lock you into the way this is set up. So there's no way to actually change that. So I think a couple questions came in.
Yeah, one wants to know, can you repeat how to add recommendations?
Sure. The easiest way to do it, if you don't see recommendations on your profile, you can go in here to add profile section and recommendations, I believe. Check this before. There we go. Under this, add recommendations. That'll set it up here on the bottom. Once you have that on the bottom, you can actually go click the plus button and start typing in the name of a particular person, but you need to be connected to them. If they're not a first degree connection, you will not be able to do this. You start typing in a name, and that will give you the opportunity to actually connect this to a person and then send it to them. Alternatively, you could actually go into a person's profile and make that request from their profile as well, but it's a little bit easier to do it like this. And I think it takes a lot less time. So a little bit easier to do it that way. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the profile. Any questions about anything we've spoken about in terms of the actual setup of the profile?
Yeah, so
Yes, please.
with regard to the courses, are those courses that you have taken or courses that you have created?
So I think it could be either depending on what's important for you. I think for students, generally it's courses that you have taken. Because when I have a student who's looking for an internship in accounting, they want to see if they took intermediate tax and they took, federal taxation and SALT and all those things. So I think it's a good selling point for them. At the point where I am, in my career, where I've been out of college for a few years, those courses wouldn't be relevant. But if you're looking for an internship, it can be very important because they want to make sure you have that expertise.
So,
Other question? Yeah, please.
pardon me, I was just
Oh,
gonna
please.
follow up on that. Does that mean you still have to go and put in courses from your bachelor's and all of your graduate school?
I think you don't have to put in. I think you would put in what if it sells you in a way that sets you apart from other candidates. That's when I would do it. Again, if you're looking for an accounting internship, generally they want a certain level of coursework to make sure you have the expertise to do what you're doing, and that's when I include that.
Okay.
If it was just
And
the
then,
standard coursework that I took in my history courses, I don't think anybody's going to really care that much about that. So, does it sell you to potential employers in a better way, knowing that you've completed those courses? And this just
okay.
include the ones that sell you better.
Okay. And then the another follow-up.
Mhm.
So from courses, there's the other one that talked about publications. That's
Mhm.
where you've published your work, right?
Yes, these are all
As a
things that
graduate
I've
student.
actually online publications. So
Okay,
I've had a few of those. Yeah.
so for even though we don't want to put in extensive, like long lines of our courses, it would be better if we did the publications, right?
Well, publications means if you were actually in a newspaper or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah. It
So
doesn't mean
so
it's not talking about classes you took. It's talking about these are articles that were in periodicals.
so are these articles that were peer reviewed, or can they be
So
the
yeah,
ones
so
from
these are
regular?
not peer reviewed because they're not in peer reviewed magazines, but I think peer reviewed is always better if you're looking in the academic world. But mine were more specifically geared towards popular culture kinds of things
So
that
can we do
LinkedIn and
both?
that. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Again,
Thank you.
things that, but the point is, does it sell you better to employers? That's the question you need to be asking yourself. Does this help me? Does this not help me? And if it helps you, then I think you want to include it. If it doesn't, then you don't want to include it. I need to take this one down because this is actually not true anymore. Used to be a philosophy I had about that. Okay. So any other questions about the profile before I go into looking for jobs? We're running out of time here. Any other questions? Okay, so the job tab is up over here. If I click on this, it'll give me the ability to look for jobs in particular. A few things I want to highlight here. You see here, I did this search already for finance in the Williamsburg, Kentucky area. And what you need to do a couple of things. First of all, play around with this because it might be something specific in finance. It could be financial reporting, financial analyst. You might need to play around to get the search terms exactly right to get the kinds of jobs you're actually looking to get. You put an experience level if you're looking for an associate or an internship, and it'll actually give you those searches based on that. Once you find the terms that work well for you, set up an alert. That alert will actually allow you to get a message from LinkedIn when new jobs meet those criteria. So you don't need to come back here and check this on a regular basis. But let's just show you here. So this is a promoted job by LinkedIn, but you see here, it shows me at new leaders, meet the hiring team. Well, this is interesting. Well, look at this. It says put a message here. This is what you do not want to do. If I click message, look what it's going to do here. It's going to ask me to pay for an email to send them a message and pay for premium to send this person a message. But you don't need to do that. This person is right here. Click on their profile. And guess what? There's the person's profile. If you click the more button here, because they'll follow, and you click down here to connect, it'll allow you to add a note to personalize. Hey, I'm very interested in the position and new leaders. I look forward to engaging in the recruitment process. And you just saved yourself from paying for that email and you still engage that same particular person. So I think that's the way to do it. It also gives you more information about the job. You can save the jobs here and come back to them later if you like. I'm going to show you one other one that I found here because one of the great things that they have on here is it actually shows you people that you're connected to on LinkedIn, potentially that you could actually utilize to help you in your search. So one of the problems with a lot of job boards is all of your leads are cold leads, and you want to make sure that you find people that can actually help you with your actual search. So look at this one at DoorDash. If I click on this and I start scrolling down over here, it shows me people I can reach out to. So those could be people I'm directly connected to, or in this case, I think it's mostly folks who went to University of California, Riverside. But that could be a great way, a school alumni, or I do have a couple connections that work there. So I could send Leanne a message. Hey, Leanne, I'm looking for a job at DoorDash. Can you help me in terms of what I need to do in order to get through the recruitment process or something like that? And it just turned what is a cold job posting into a warm lead. Worst case scenario, though, I have a couple school alumni here. You look for your University of Cumberland's folks, and then again, send them a message. They might ask you to actually pay for it, but go on their profile, send them a connection request that's personalized, and utilize them to help you in terms of making sure they can make that introduction so that you're actually able to have a warm lead to those particular jobs. Okay, so you want to set up those alerts, get the search terms exactly right, then utilize the resources that are available on LinkedIn that aren't available on other job boards. Find that particular person who's posting the job, send them a LinkedIn connection request. Find those people that are in your profile or part of your network that you can utilize to turn a cold lead into a warm lead. Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? A couple other things I want to show you, but I want to make sure we answer questions before we're done. So jump on in anytime with questions, because this is a very important thing I think people that overlook very frequently. And this is available on the free side of LinkedIn. You see here on the LinkedIn homepage, I click the little blue in and I go to profile viewers. It says 423, but generally this is going to default to the last 5 people who looked at my profile. Anybody here from I think we probably have a couple people here from this thing, which is great, which means you're looking at my profile. The reason this is important is because this gives me an opportunity to engage with folks who have showed interest in me. If somebody looked at my profile, it means they showed some kind of interest. So I want to follow up with that interest and say, thank you for viewing my profile. Please let me know how I can be of assistance. And that's what I do with all the people that actually look at my profile over here. Sometimes if you hit the connect button here, it doesn't let you personalize it. Sometimes it does. We just see here. You see that? That sent it without personalizing. That's what I don't want to do. What I'd rather do here is actually go into the person's profile and then hit connect there, because then I could personalize it instead of sending that automatic one that it just did, which is what I don't want to do. Just to be aware, paying for premium lets you see up to 90 days worth of people who viewed your profile. But if people are viewing your profile and they have it set to private, you're not going to be able to see them even if they do that. So you see here, this person has set the private. I can't see their name, even though I pay for a premium account. So we got about 3 minutes left. I want to see if there are any other questions that I can answer about anything we've spoken about tonight, or any other things you've always wanted to know about LinkedIn, but we're afraid to ask.
So I have 2 questions. The first one is on the top part near your name, you have a badge. How do we get that badge versus a verified badge kind of indicator?
This badge right over here?
Yes.
So actually, if you go under resources, I think they moved it to, you actually need to go through Clear. They actually have I'm trying to see where it is here. I think it's under about this profile that gives you the opportunity to actually go in there and verify it with Clear. So you need a government ID. Some people don't want to do this because you're actually putting your government ID and you're giving it to Clear, which has had some breaks in terms of the security. But I like it because that way people can actually see that I'm a real person and they can see when I join. So you would go in here and actually go through the verification process via Clear, and then you could actually have that badge added once Clear actually does show them that you're a real person, then you are who you say you are. So
Awesome.
there's
Thank you.
positives and negatives to it. Yep.
And then the second question I had is, when you're looking for jobs and you see that there have been over 100 applicants, do we still have to go and apply there, or can we move on to something else?
Look, I would say nowadays, especially when you have a situation where the job market is contracting, pretty much every job is going to have a whole bunch of people applying for it. But I think the best thing to do is to personalize your actual application. Because if even 150 people actually apply for this, how many of them reached out to Anise and sent her a connection request? Or how many people have used their Cumberland connections to get an in and figure out what they need to do to get in there? I think that's a much smaller number, and it helps set you apart compared to other people.
Okay.
Other questions?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for the questions.
There's one in the chat. Do you recommend
Yes.
us to opt for LinkedIn Premium? How helpful would it be?
Great question. So I get this question pretty much every session. I think generally you do not need to pay for LinkedIn Premium because LinkedIn Premium is expensive. The only real difference that it makes is in terms of how many searches you can do per month. The one problem that I don't like, and this is something I got in my soapbox about this a little bit last year when I gave my presentation, is LinkedIn now limits the number of personalized connection requests you can send per month on a free account. That's between 5 and 20. There's no way to know which month you get 5, which one you get 20. So if you're sending a lot of connection requests in a month, you're probably going to need premium, otherwise you cannot personalize all of them. But what I usually advise folks to do is to get a free month. Usually LinkedIn gives you a free month every year of premium, then send your connection requests and personalize them for that month and then cancel it after so you don't have to pay for it. I don't think it's worthwhile generally for the vast majority of users. As long as you're checking the profile viewers on a regular basis, you're not missing folks, and you're not doing that many searches like I'm doing for our first destination surveys, you can get around the problem with the connection request. I always say, don't give LinkedIn any money. I do it because I have to do the searches for my job. Other questions?
Another one in the chat. What's your view on how good promoted and easy apply jobs are?
So promoted are the ones that people have actually paid for LinkedIn to promote. So usually, actually, I'm a little less interested in those because, why they have to promote it, why they're sticking out in my face as opposed to having it there. But you can always scroll down and get other ones. Easy apply simply means you can apply directly on LinkedIn. Look, I think it's a nice, easy thing to do, but a lot of places also request that you actually put in the full information anyway, even if you're clicking easy apply, because they want to have all that information, but they're using your LinkedIn profile to populate that information. So yeah, I wouldn't run away from promoted or easy apply, but if it helps you and it's easy to do, there's nothing wrong with it.
Is it a good idea to use AI to personalize my resume?
Personalize your resume. So what I say about resumes is I use it as assistive as opposed to generative. I never use AI in order to generate a resume for you. What I do is I actually work on the resume, personalize it with myself and each individual student. Then, without the contact information on it, so I don't open source their information, I run it through AI to get its feedback. You are, and I tell it, you are a hiring manager at Meta. Evaluate and assess this resume for an entry-level software position and see what it says. Don't use it as the word of God. It is certainly not, but utilize it as a way of seeing if you're in the ballpark for what it is. So I use it as assistive, not generative.
Where can we see your video?
So if you actually go onto my profile, my video is under my featured section, and hopefully, actually, Russell, you'll have my video. We're gonna have a new one of these in a couple of weeks that I'll be sending that to you. I also do have a YouTube channel that I didn't put up on here. Let's see if I can grab that really quick because I have a bunch of YouTube videos on here that are related almost entirely to LinkedIn. So you go to YouTube and it's Chaim Shapiro, YouTube, Chaim Shapiro. You're actually able to see, I actually have something called LinkedIn in 4 minutes or less, which goes through pretty much what we talked about today, but goes through it in each section in less than 4 minutes. So you can go to my channel right over here.
And then I can answer this one. Student wants to know, does the university give any free LinkedIn premium? We do not. We do have things like Grammarly and different things like that that you all have access to. But as far as LinkedIn Premium, we do
I'm
not.
not aware of any college that actually does. Some of them have it in the library for LinkedIn Learning, but I'm not sure of any that actually give it for free to the students.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yes. How do we distinguish our CV from our resume from our LinkedIn?
So I don't think you necessarily have to distinguish it unless you're applying for different things. I think anything you have online, whether it's on Handshake or whether it's on LinkedIn, is going to be your more generic version that's open for anybody that's able to see it. Your resume is going to be more targeted for positions, and your CV is even more targeted usually for academic kinds of things. So that's how I would target it. More generic online for everybody, and then targeted for resume, and even more targeted for CV. Other questions?
Awesome. Thank
This is
you.
great. Oh, my pleasure. This is great. Other questions?
Where can I get a professional headshot for my picture?
So there are a lot of places that actually sell it. I don't think you need to do that. Cameras are so good on your iPhone or Samsung nowadays that if you're wearing professional clothes against a white wall, and if somebody, don't take a selfie, but if somebody actually take it, generally you can get a photo which is almost as good as the professionals do. But there are people who sell LinkedIn headshot photos, and that's the possibility. But again, save yourself the money. Try it first with that white background, but always have somebody else take it. You don't want it to be a selfie. Plus, you could always try it if you're on your computer. You could actually add photo and see if it actually takes the camera on your actual computer actually does take a good photo or you or not. So it's not able to access on my computer, but it might be able to access it on yours.
What are the better platforms to look for jobs other than LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn is my favorite. I know Indeed is pretty good because it's a job board aggregator. But most of the important sites now are job board aggregators, which means they collect job postings from across the internet. It's not just that somebody posted to Indeed. If somebody posted to the Turo job site, Turo has careers, it'll be picked up by LinkedIn or Indeed. So Indeed is my second favorite, but LinkedIn is my favorite because it does demonstrate and show you those direct connections that you have to those opportunities.
Yeah, and of course, as a student, we have Handshake as well. So,
And
awesome.
I spent a lot of time on Handshake today working with my students. It's a great system.
Yes. So as a student, you have access to that. Could you suggest any more tips for effective job search?
Look, I think everything you can do in order to make sure that when people see your profile, you're promoting what it is you're actually able to do for your employer. So your area of expertise here in your LinkedIn headline. I want to know if I'm looking to hire somebody who has expertise in SQL and C Sharp, that should be there so I can see that. But also, I think whatever you can do to make a connection as opposed to a cold sending of a resume makes it much better. They're getting thousands of resumes, and we call that the slush pile. If you're in the slush pile, yeah, 1%, 2% get picked. If you're actually sending it through a connection, it's a much higher rate of getting reviewed and a much higher rate of actually getting actual positions. So do everything you can, turn your cold leads into warm leads.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yes, I have one question. So, I have experience in web development, but I also have experience in customer focused role. So, how can I make sure that my LinkedIn shows that I'm open for both the roles, but also not
Yeah.
make it confusing for the recruiter?
It is, that's a little bit difficult to do because, like I said before, LinkedIn doesn't do two areas of expertise well. You might want to separate different ideas here in the headline that could potentially confuse the recruiter. The other way around that is under your jobs to make sure you include the skills so they can see how long you've had those skills. I wish there was a better answer to that, and LinkedIn needs to fix that, but they haven't. So it's no good way to show two things without confusing people specifically. And I wish LinkedIn made that better, but that's a flaw in the system. Other questions?
Another one, what's your perspective on the balance between what you know and who you know in a job search?
Well, look, obviously you want to sell your skills, and when anyone finds you, they want to make sure that you're presenting it so that when your friend sends it in, or your coworker or somebody from your church or synagogue sends it in, they actually look at your profile. He has the skills or she has the skills that I need. Look, but who you know is always the best thing. If you can get somebody from the inside to submit your resume, that breaks down barriers that otherwise are almost impossible to break down. I mean, the slush pile gets 1-2%. People who send it in to people who submit it on their behalf get a much, much higher ranking than that.
And we have Cumberland's Connect, it's called, at University of the Cumberlands. That's a way to connect with alumni. So check that out. It's on the Career Services webpage. It's free to you guys. And basically you can connect with alumni in your field. So try that out too. Make a great connection.
Excuse me. Other questions?
Yes, I have another question.
Mhm.
So, I have studied in Cumberland's in an online program. So, what could be the best things that I can put on my LinkedIn so that it shows that I have interaction with other students or my professors, so anything that I can add to my LinkedIn, that
So
it
I
shows
probably
my
would add
network there.
I'm sorry, I probably would add recommendations from your professors. And if there are specific things you could add under your education, like I have, let's see, where are we here? You see here that when I was at Northeastern Illinois University, I have my activities up here because I did some really interesting stuff or courses or those kinds of things. So whatever sells you the best in terms of your education, the people who will be interested in potentially hiring you is what I would add, and in whatever place you can. But recommendations from your professors is a great way of doing that.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Other questions?
Are recommendations seen only by recruiters or
No,
by
recommendations are
everyone?
available on anyone's profile. If you scroll down my profile, you'll see the top two or the last two that I got, and you can click show all and see them all if you like.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so they're available for everybody. Other questions?
Can we hide the recommendations date?
You absolutely can. You don't need to put it up. And if I wanted to take any one of these down, click the pencil right over here, and I can go in. And by the way, they can't put it on there unless you let them. So you don't need to put it up. If I wanted to take one of these guys down, I just simply click toggle this to off, and that one will no longer show up where anybody can see it.
I'm asking, can we exclude the date?
Oh, the date. I don't believe so.
Ah,
I don't believe so. The date is actually required. And one thing I don't like is the fact that it actually defaults to the most recent first. It shouldn't be that way, but that is how it is. Other questions?
For example, if you have worked with a colleague in past 5 years and we ask him to do
So what
recommendation.
I would do is ask them to renew it. You see, Amy here gave me one. I think she gave me one, or Chloe did. She gave me one a few years ago and gave me a new one recently. So I would just ask them to redo it, and then the date will show up as the new one.
Okay.
And turn the other one to off. Somebody asked about uploading this PDF. I don't think that makes sense. I think it's better to have them actually here on the account as opposed to putting it on PDF under featured. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Love the questions. A lot of great questions there. So I really, really love that. Thank you so much for having me. And maybe, Russell, maybe next year I'll see you in person because I want to see that waterfall out there.
Yeah, really. We need to get you down here. There's a lot.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording and then I'll follow up with you on email.
Yeah.